Welcome to the Inspired Caring podcast, where women who are in the messy middle of this big, beautiful, and sometimes chaotic life are finding inspiration and resources to care for themselves and figure out the best options to care for their aging loved ones. How we take care of ourselves today impacts how we are aging tomorrow. This podcast will help you feel seen, centered, and aligned. Everyone that relies on you is so lucky to have you in their life. The Inspired Caring podcast is your reminder that the number one person that counts on you is yourself. Congratulations on being here in this moment. Let's dive in and be inspired. Today on Inspired Caring, I'm so excited to welcome Nicole Smith, the author of Diagnosis Dementia, Your Guide for Eldercare Planning and Crisis Management. Thank you, Nicole, for being here.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
Yes. Share a little bit about your background. Like, what is your story that led you to writing this impactful book?
I basically wrote the book I could not find. So I'm a reader, and my journey began literally about the same time as the pandemic. I flew from New Jersey to California to accompany my mom at a neurology appointment. And we didn't really know much then, and I didn't know anything then. And then over the course of the next year and a half, things went sideways so many ways for my mom, my dad, my stepmom. And so I got thrown into caregiving, cross-country caregiving headfirst. And I was struggling to figure out how to do all this, and wasn't finding, well, once I learned that dementia, you're not supposed to argue with them, and all the basic things that not to do when you're talking with someone with dementia. But I couldn't find, I was dealing with legal and medical and financial in different states. And I could not find the book that broke that down, because that was my imminent need right then. And so while I was going through this, I was processing everything I was going through by writing and chronicling and talking, and then kind of turned it into a book because I hoped that maybe other people would find it useful.
That's amazing to have 3 family members out of town simultaneously having these different experiences.
Yep.
And were you flying solo, or were there more family members involved?
Yeah, well, I have the whole contentious family story as well. So my mother lived in LA, my sister lived 10 minutes away, but told me to deal with it. And I was in New Jersey with 5 kids of my own. So I started flying back and forth. And then my Aunt Nancy, who is my mother's older sister, she lives in Maryland. So she was flying back and forth. So we were kind of taking turns flying back and forth to kind of manage everything with my mom. And thank heavens she's a nurse, has been a nurse for 50 years. So she handled all the medical stuff. So that was a huge help. And then fortunately I'm married to a CPA. So he was handling all the tax stuff. I mean, some of that came later, but then I had to hire an elder law attorney. And then I hired one in California. I hired one in New Jersey. I hired one. I started talking to Maryland. I hired one in Iowa, because I didn't know where she would end up, where my mom would end up. And it's so different. And because I couldn't figure out how to get her out of her house, because she refused to leave her house. And then you go into conservatorship and guardianship, and I didn't want to go that route. It's obviously it's so confusing, and that's just the legal part. So I could go down 19 rabbit holes. So tell me what you think is about.
Where do we go from here? Did people in your family actually have a dementia diagnosis, or was it
Yeah. So my mother, that first neurology appointment was a baseline. So that was March of 2020. So then we went through the whole pandemic. She was isolated. Her dementia got so much worse. Mm-hmm. And then I had to trick her into going to the next neurology appointment once the world kind of opened up and we could get her back to the neurologist. And I had to tell her that she was getting a COVID booster. And because she had just enough cognitive ability to make our lives very difficult. So, and the paranoia and the denial. And So anyway, once we had that other appointment, which I can't remember what date, right? But so we officially got, I think it was the summer of 21, we officially got the inner portal and got the official diagnosis that she had Alzheimer's, because she had gotten so much worse, and the neurologist evaluated her and all that. But we didn't have any PET scans or spinal taps or anything like that. But then it took another 8 months to get the primary and the neurologist to write those letters that would invoke the terms of her trust so that we could take over. So that took another 8 months. And that was because my aunt was a nurse and spoke the medical terminology and was in the portals and on the phone with them, because physicians don't want to get involved with legal. They don't want to write those letters, and they didn't know how to write those letters. And so that was a huge hurdle that we had to overcome to help to get control of my mom's finances. So so the medical, the financial, and the legal all kind of intertwine, but they don't want to intertwine. But if you're a family member, you have to deal with all of it simultaneously.
Right. Totally. And with your dad and your stepmom, was there specific diagnoses that you were?
Yes. So within 1 year, my mom got the official Alzheimer's diagnosis. My stepmother got the official primary progressive aphasia diagnosis, and my dad had surgery for normal pressure hydrocephalus, which is a fluid on the brain, and his was more a physical interference. So that was one night in the hospital, drill a hole in his skull, put in the shunt, the tube, and you're done. And it was miraculous. So I was there for that. And, thank goodness, like that was like the bright star in this situation. So he is still living in Iowa at home with my stepmom, but she continues to get worse. And so he's doing the adult day and the home care and then looking at memory care. Like it's a dance, right? Until you can figure out what you need to do. So yeah, I've been that part of that every step of the way, but he's the primary caregiver for my stepmom.
Right. With you like going like this in the background, like trying to catch if anything falls or slips.
Well, I talk to him all the time, and I let him do his things his way. And I go, I was just there like a month ago. I pop in whenever I can, every 6 months or whatever, for eyes on, so yeah.
And you're in Arizona, and where do they live?
So they're in Iowa.
Okay.
Where I grew up.
Yeah.
And then, so my mother was in LA, and then she ended up in Maryland. It's a giant, long story. And then she was in New Jersey in behavioral health, then back in Maryland for 2 years in memory care. And then after we moved to Tucson, we moved her here 6 months later. So she's in memory care in Tucson near me.
Okay.
Right now. So I see her about 4 times a week.
And you are a mom to 5 children.
Yeah,
what is their age span?
Well, 2 out of college, 2 in college, 1 still at home. But I like to say, like, I don't have to hire babysitters, but big kids, big problems.
Yes. Yeah. No, we have 2 in college. One's about to graduate and one's still at home. And, our college students, our young adults, our young people, they've got big stuff they're trying to navigate right now. And yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I've got stories. And
do you primarily work in the home? Do you work outside of the home?
Well, I was fortunate. My husband had a great career. So I worked, I graduated with a business degree from UT Austin and worked for about 10 years, and then met my husband and started popping out children. And so I was always pregnant, nursing, or whatever. So I stayed home with the kids, and I did a lot of international volunteer work, and just that was on my own time. And then was looking at what was going to be my, next move. And then caregiving happened. So now I'm consumed by everything caregiving. But, from caregiving from a practical, doing it every day standpoint, but also speaking and sharing and learning. So it's my full-time job now. It's everything related to elder care.
Yeah. It's interesting because I stumbled into it as well, with my family members, and I could feel those times when I left grad school for 3 years to be home and help with my in-laws because I was working in a nursing home at the time and the kids were all still at home. And I don't know, I felt like there's no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah, well,
way.
I mean, you do what you got to do, right? I mean, unfortunately, I'm not trying to hold down a job and do all this. Like I review a lot of books, and I just finished reading Working Daughter by Liz O'Donnell, where she was trying to work and raise kids, and then her husband was ill, and then she, had a full-time job, and so that's a great book for the working women out there. We're all just doing the best we can, and it's mostly women, right? So I forget where the quote was, but it said most other countries have safety nets and programs for the elders, and the US has women.
Oh my gosh.
That's true.
It's an overwhelm. It's light and funny and super overwhelming.
Well, that's what I like to say in my book. My book helps you organize the overwhelm. So, I mean, I know I'm going on these tangents, but my book is very organized with lists and stories and resources and, very broken apart. I self-published, but I hired a professional editor with 40 years experience whose mom also has dementia. So she gets it. So.
Mm. So tell us about some of the chapters in the book. Like what can we look forward to?
Yeah, well, it's part memoir and part prescriptive. So I talk about like the four main areas you kind of need to pay attention. So it was driving and cooking and checking the mail and I can't remember what the other one is, but it's like the common things to kind of pay attention to and look for that we missed because I didn't know anything about dementia. And I call them the that's weird moments with my
Mhm.
mom, like, oh, that's weird. And then you just move on and then realize later, oh gosh, that was like a giant red flag for dementia. But she was also hiding it. And we were 3,000 miles away because every person is different, every experience is different, every type of dementia is different, but there are a lot of common kind of signs and factors that you can look for. So I kind of outline those, and then I say, well, yeah, you need to get your powers of attorney and stuff done and plan because if you don't, this is why, this is what happened, and this is what happened to us. So I go into the story of all the crazy stuff that we had to go through because we were flying blind at the beginning. So I tell you the what, the how, and the why. So yeah, the chapters like taming the bull is one. My mom was very difficult. That's a chapter. Managing the move. So we did cross country moves. I had to clean out the house, and I still pay for storage that I don't know when I'm going to get to.
Mhm.
Talking about building your care team, and like if I did not have my Aunt Nancy with me throughout the whole thing, I would have died because 30% of caregivers die before the person they're caring for. So my Aunt Nancy and I, we are the team, we are the rock, we are each other's foundation. So you've got to have at least one person or two that you can cry to and vent to and yell at. You need that.
Absolutely. And it's such an isolating experience because I think one of the things that I've come across is people think they're super unique, that their family is like so different than everybody else's, but really so many of the issues that we face are really similar.
Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, you are not alone, and we've heard it all before. I mean, yes, people have unique this or that, but I mean, we're all frustrated and we're all exhausted and we're all upset and we're all, we're all in this together, basically.
Totally. And trying to manage the same issues, financial issues, legal issues, housing issues. Um,
Medical placement. Yep.
yes. How was the decision to transition her to memory care? How did that come about?
Well, a lot of people are like, oh no, we're going into assisted living. We're not doing memory care. Well, no, she was hands down going to memory care because she was a
Mhm.
huge flight risk. And it was the flight risk scenario that sealed the deal. So again, it's a long story, but she ended up in New Jersey in a behavioral health center where she was evaluated for, psychotic break and Alzheimer's and everything. And so it was a very amazing facility in New Jersey. And so the pharmacologist or whatever he was, there's so many pharma neurology, whatever, he got her med mix right and got her on just a few medications, but got her to calm down, got the anxiety managed, got, she had been diagnosed, she had been prescribed Aricept, a year before, but she forgot to take it because it was new in her routine and she has dementia. So anyway, so then she was there for 3 weeks. And then the mandate was that she could only be discharged to a memory care facility, which was what we wanted. And so my aunt had figured out which one she needed to go to in Maryland near my aunt, even though I was in New Jersey because we were getting ready to move to Arizona, it was orchestrating all this. But I did, even though I was still in New Jersey, I was down in Maryland every 3 weeks to stay for a 3 days to kind of go through this again with my aunt and help and manage all of it. Yeah. So
it was like
a question.
Well, yeah, it was a no-brainer that memory care was the most appropriate environment for her. And you had a farm of, I've never even heard
Well,
that.
there's like a PharmD, there's a neurology, psychologist, pharmacologist. Like I'm not a medical person, obviously, but he was qualified. I mean, we talked to we had like group chats on the phone, but I just was like, whatever you need to do, dude, just do it.
Keep trying.
Yeah.
Well, so that's great that you were able to build out that team of people that could really figure out what she needed and, get that taken
But
care of.
she was a victim. I mean, she was not cooperating at all through any of this. And so we finally had to, it's, and because you can't, even though she had her will and all that stuff, then you can't physically remove someone from their house other than like a straitjacket. So I mean, we had police, we had security, we had it's a crazy story, but because she was so difficult, but we worked it out. But I didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm thinking she's going to get moved out because I'm talking to the lawyer and he's like, oh, no, she just has a court date and then you have to wait 6 months. I'm like, what? Yeah, I mean, you just don't know. And he didn't tell me that. And I'm like, that's not going to work. So.
Are you willing to share that story with the police and like how that?
Yeah, well, there was a couple of different things. So the one thing was so the car, right? Taking away your driver's license is huge. And she loved her car and it was her independence. And so people are like, oh, we'll just disable the car or do this or that. Well, she was best friends with her mechanics and they loved her and she loved them. And so if I would have just taken the distributor cap off or removed whatever, she would have called them immediately and said, oh, my car's broken, come over and fix it. Well, and I was new to this. So, well, is it okay to tell the mechanics that she's got dementia? Do I share this? Is that going to be awkward? How are they going to take it? It was all unfamiliar territory for me. And so we're like, okay, well, we can't do that. So then we tried literally stealing the car and my sister parked it under her building. And then my mom called the police and the police said, if you don't bring our car back, we're going to have to arrest you. Yes, okay. Because it's her property and it's stolen property, even though we didn't tell her that that's where the car was. She she was just cognizant enough to, And then, so it's a crazy story. And then funny enough, and then it gets crazier and crazier. So then we had to bring the car back, but
we want to hear it.
Well, no. And then her driver's license had already been revoked because in California, if you get a neurology or an Alzheimer's dementia diagnosis, they have to notify the DMV. So her license had been revoked, but she didn't care. And she just said, no, I still have a driver's license so I can drive. Right. I mean, that was her logic.
Mm-hmm.
Like people say, oh, I still have checks, so I must have money, right?
Right.
And there was some of that going on too. And so anyway, so then as we're trying to scramble to figure out what to do. So she still had her car, was still driving, it's totally dangerous. So then she went to the grocery store because really all she did was go to the grocery. She loved going to the grocery store. So she would go to the grocery store and she went and she came out of the grocery store and said, my car's been stolen. And she couldn't find it because she forgot where she parked and she couldn't remember what her car looked like. And so she was getting worse. So we didn't know this, but one of the neighbors helped her find her car and brought it back. Well, then this happened again, because we're finding information out kind of randomly later through the neighbors, but then it happened again. And so my sister had a set of keys. So when it happened again, and we thought the car was probably in the grocery store parking lot, my sister went and got it then, and then took it and hid it under her building. And then by then, you know, my mom just started filing insurance claims. So that was like one crazy thing. And then the other crazy thing was they my mom flew with my sister from LA to Maryland because she knew we were getting close to putting her somewhere and we were getting frustrated. So she's like, well, I'll just live near my sister Nancy. I'll go look at independent living. Like this was her like thinking I'm going to live independently.
Mm-hmm.
So she's, I'll go look with Nancy. And so Nancy had lined up some things. So my sister flew to Maryland, dropped her off, flew back to LA, and then Nancy, the next night, you know, Nancy was planning on taking her to go look. And I woke up on the Monday morning to my sister's text saying, I got this crazy text from mom, she's gone, to Nancy texting me, oh my God, I just woke up and your mom is gone. And mom was gone. Mom left in the middle of the night in Maryland in 30-degree weather. And through another long story, we found her. She had booked a flight and was at BWI at Southwest Terminal getting ready to fly back to LA because she had no intention of looking at independent living. And so they had to come with the security guards and like get her. And oh my God, that was crazy.
So she's at the airport.
There was like a week there, huh?
So she's at the airport. She bought herself a ticket to go back to LA without really a plan on the other side.
Well, she just wanted to get home. Like her house was her like safe zone and her domain. And the only reason we got her to leave her house to go, because she knew we were closing in, like we were going to do something and she could sense it, but she's still trying to like, you know, outsmart us. So we found out later. So she left at like midnight on a Sunday night, walking around where my aunt lives, and found some guys coming out of a bar to give her a ride. And I mean, just, yeah. So, there's like, again, like 6 other crazy stories within each. Because that's why I wrote the book. I'm like, you can't make this up. You cannot make this up.
Right. So did the police say you can't board the flight, or what happened?
So they came, they said, they were like, we can't do anything until Nancy called. They're like, we can't do anything till you get here, bring the power of attorney, whatever. We've got her on the monitor. And so Nancy and her neighbor, and they all kind of approach her in the gate area, and she looks up and she gets irate because she sees Nancy and all that. So she runs into the bathroom, takes her bag and runs in the bathroom. So they're all just waiting out there, you know, and then she comes out and then she goes back in the bathroom. And so the security captain, the guy, had to go in the women's restroom and get her. And then she comes out and she's mad, and they just basically escorted them back to their car. And Nancy and them, they took off and went back to Nancy's house. And then we visited behavioral health in Maryland to try to get her to self-admit, and she refused. And then we ended up jumping in the car and driving back, because I had come down when all this happened. I took the train down from New Jersey. Again, long story. And then we ended up going back to New Jersey, admitted her in the ER, which she was mad. And then she went from the ER to like their blue zone, then their orange zone, then to behavioral health, and then eventually to memory care. But again, all this took a bunch of managing and calls and documents, and it was not easy. But we were like, this is ending. We are done with her micromanaging and denial and freaking all of us out. We're done. We had hit we were done.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're not doing this anymore at all. We're trying to help you. We've been trying to help you, but you don't get to vote anymore. You're done.
Oh my gosh. So the emergency room was able to admit her for something.
Yes. And
Yeah.
then I had to hide around the corner. She was mad at me. She's like saying HIPAA. I mean, it's funny. It was terrifying, but it was funny. But that's what I figured out. It's like, okay, you can wait 6 months to get conservatorship, which takes forever. Or the other option that you may have is direct admit to the ER if they'll take you. And again, like Omicron was spiking at this point, the next wave of COVID. So there was a line and there was masks, and it was like, only, no companions, but they saw my mom and me and saw her, and they're like, okay, you can stay, please stay.
Mm-hmm.
But then once we got into the back and I talked to the attending and the nurse and whatever, they're like, all right, she's going to be here a while. She's mad at you. you just go. And so they just told me to go. And, you
Mhm.
know, and then I was on the phone, and then again, like 16 other weird things happened, but we got her where she needed to be. But it's a process, and it's not easy.
How did you tap into patience? Like the two things that are coming up in my mind are how did you navigate each of these scenarios and how did you take care of yourself, kind of being all over all the place all the
So
time?
I say this all the time. My holy trinity of sanity is yoga, beer, and chocolate every day. That's really it. So yeah, and I am I am a doer and I'm a delegator. So I know I'm not a medical person, so I find, you know, who's going to help me there. I know I'm not a tax person or a, you know, who's going to help me there. I'm obviously not an attorney, so who, you know, so I'm definitely not afraid to reach out and be like, okay, who can help? And I'm going to ask you to help. And if you can't help, that's fine. I'm going to ask somebody else. Like when my kids were growing up, they're like, oh my gosh, how do you manage all of the sports and the activities with the 5 kids? And I didn't have them crazy schedule, but I'm like, I am shameless about asking for carpool help. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
I'm happy to take other kids, and but I mean, I ask. And if you say no, fine, I'll move on. But I mean, a lot of people are like, no, 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 I can do it, or I'll take care of it. But I don't pretend to be an expert at anything, and I am again shameless about asking for help and advice and doing my own homework. So that's what I do.
Well, and I mean, shameless is a term that I think if it feels like we're throwing it around, but really it should be without shame. Like,
I
why
mean,
should
and
I?
yeah, I don't harbor any of that, but I'm just saying, I'm
Yeah.
very, obviously, I'm very outgoing. I'm not afraid to speak my mind or ask for help or talk about things or, but like I said, back at the beginning, I didn't know how to talk about dementia, or if I could talk about dementia, or and then when I went to do my book, my friend who's middle aged, she goes, "Oh, well, you can't put dementia in the title." I'm like, "That's exactly why I'm putting dementia in the title. We need to talk about dementia, and I'm not afraid to talk about dementia ever." You know, but at the beginning, I didn't know, and the neighbors knew that she had issues, but they didn't know us. They weren't going to call me and be like, "Hey, your mom has dementia." You know, so we could have found out 2 years before if we would have been paying attention, and but we just didn't know.
Yeah. That is such a powerful, impactful thing you just shared that your friend was saying you can't say dementia in the title of the book. And I think there is a lot of shame and stigma around dementia, memory loss, cognitive impairment. And so you are charging the way on smashing that apart. Like we have to talk
Right.
about
Well, it's fear, you know, fear, right? Fear and shame and blame and they say it 20 years before the symptoms show up is when the changes in the brain start. So,
it.
you know, anybody in their mid 50s, you know, mid 70s was when everything went sideways for my folks. So you got to make lifestyle changes now. They still don't know what causes dementia, why it happens, who it happens to. So, but they do say lifestyle plays a big part, right? Exercise, socialize, eat veggies, sleep, manage stress. But you know that's it's stressful to manage all that stuff.
Mhm.
You have to pick. But the one thing that they say, and I'm not a physician, is exercise and socialize. Those are the one and
Mhm.
two hot topics right now. If you do those two things, but there's no guarantees in life, right? You could do everything right and still, you know, get hit by a bus. So you don't know.
Right. You know, and I think one of the things that we recently had a family member pass away, and the daughter, when she stood up and spoke, he was 80 and he was so very healthy and then did pass away from cancer. And um, what she connected these dots that it didn't really matter that he had worked so hard to be so healthy because obviously he still passed from cancer. And I thought, you know, but every day exercise has an immediate response for us, and how we eat has an immediate response, and socialization. So like every day you still feel better if you do those things.
Yeah, and you have to find what you like to do. Like my sister is a spin instructor and she loves it. And she's like, "Oh, you got to come to my spin." I'm like, "I hate spin. I hate it. I don't want to do it." I mean, I like, you know, weights and I like a little bit of jogging and I like yoga and but you swimming, what, find your thing, or tennis or
Mhm.
pickleball. That's social and exercise, right?
Mhm.
So
So did your
um
sister end up moving to Arizona?
No, so my sister lives in California
Okay.
and we did reconcile. So we both have boys at the University of Arizona.
Mm.
And yeah, and she, whatever. We did reconcile. And then the good thing is so I had a stepdad too, and he has five girls. So the oldest stepsister came and helped me empty out mom's house, and they've been very supportive and helpful. So I mean, again, it was just, and everyone's spread all over the country. So yeah, no, but my sister, she sees my mom maybe twice a year, but, which is fine. I mean, I'm fine with the thing that I didn't like was she told me to deal with it, and I was like, fine, I'll deal with it. She had a full-time job and the kid, whatever. But the thing that happened is when I showed up, then she would come over and be like, well, you're doing this wrong, and you're doing this wrong, and you can't do it this way. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm like, well, do you want to do it? No, 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 you do it, but you're just doing it all wrong. And I'm like, okay, well, I blocked her from everything for 2 years. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not talking to you because this is not helpful.
Right.
Right. Okay, you're done. So
Yeah. We don't get to have it both ways. We don't get to say, I'm going to be hands off, but then micromanaging from the wings.
yeah, no. And then so my brother had checked out years ago. Like we talked to him occasionally. He just wants to live his life with his wife, which is fine. And then so I sent him the book and he's like, well, you should have done. I'm like, should have? Like, where were you? Like, hello. So yes, everyone. I mean, and it was fine. He was just like he just was. I think just clueless about all of it, which is and it's fine, but it's just hilarious.
Yeah. Hindsight, isn't it? It's so easy with hindsight to see what could have happened differently. Yeah.
Right. Right. And that's why I try to tell people it's like dementia, it can be not just memory loss, it can be behavioral, it can be executive function, it can be just personality. Like the ones that are closest to someone recognize it first sometimes because it's the doctor will be like, no, no, you're normal. Like, no, 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 that's not normal for her. That's not normal for him. And
Right.
we did it. There was the that's weird moments, but I had no idea. We just thought, oh, well, mom's weird. That's weird. I didn't know that was like a dementia thing or it could be a dementia thing. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, the book sounds amazing. Like it's a good guidebook for people. And you've got some great stories within it.
It reads like a suspense novel, I swear. I mean, so my editor was so amazing. And she's like, okay, we need another story here. I moved this, like she organized it. And I mean, people read it in one sitting.
That's
Some people.
amazing.
But it's
Yeah.
also broken down. Like if you're at the doctor's office and you're like, okay, what should I pay attention to here? Or, okay, I need to hire an elder law attorney. Let me just see let me look at that section and see what I need to look for. So.
How did your kids manage you during this time? Not how did you manage the kids? Because it sounds like you were really good at asking for help and delegated, but how do they manage you? Like, because my kids have always had a caregiver for a mother because I was caring for my grandmothers when they were born. So, yeah. How did that go?
Well, it was the fortunate timing of it all is that my husband was kind of like slowing down with his job. So he was kind of like, even though he was still working, he was kind of already retired with the whole COVID thing. So he was retired. So he was like home. And so I could fly back and forth because he was holding down the fort. So, I'm not the best mother in the world by far. But the one thing that I said earlier is that I didn't overschedule my kids because I wanted them to grow up together. I wanted them to grow. I didn't want them passing each other in the carpool. I want them to grow up together, and they are so tight. They have their own group chat, and they talk to each other, and they share with each other. And now as the older two are adulting, now we've got like political infighting.
Oh gosh.
And so, whatever. But they all are still very, very close because they were together all the time, and they're all together and saying, yes, our mother's a whack job. So they left it, which is fine. I mean, yeah, so I think, they had each other, they had their dad, and they, and I'm always present. Like, how are you? I'm not like, I'll go for weeks without talking to the ones that are out and about working, but they know they can call me anytime. I mean, last week I dropped everything to go run my son to urgent care because I kept telling him, you're sick, you're sick. No, I'm not sick. And then he's like, I'm sick. but I'm lucky he's close and I could do that. So, so.
So really, they had a really stable home environment. Your husband was really running the show and when you were away. So
Yeah.
that didn't have to be outsourced and it brought them together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, like I said, their favorite togetherness is telling me how crazy I am, but that's okay. I'll be the scapegoat. It's fine. When they become parents, maybe they'll figure it out. I don't know.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who is at the front end of this? Like they're starting to have the that's weird moments. What do you feel like is a good next step for them after they have to buy your book? A, B, what should be next?
Well, you have to find support. Like, so if it's your spouse or if it's your aunt or like it was with me or your pastor or a neighbor or a friend, because caregiving is everywhere. Like if you throw a rock in the grocery store, you will hit a caregiver. I mean, people don't talk about it, but everyone is caregiving. So, and if you are in an employee situation, the employee assistance program, the employee resource group, like some companies have them, some companies don't. You have to dig, but you have to start to build your support network stat. Like even if it's just one person or if it's a podcast host that identify with, like use that as your sustenance, right? So you've got a great podcast and I'm part of Daughterhood, which is an online support group for caregivers. And they have Roseanne runs a podcast and there's 50 episodes. And on every Daughterhood call, I say, sign up for the calls, but Daughterhood, the podcast is available 24/7. If you just need a calming voice and you need someone giving you good advice in the middle of the night, just, that's the beauty of the podcast, right? And I do that a lot in the middle of the night. If I can't sleep, I turn on a podcast, or if I'm in the car, I turn on a podcast because then I'm constantly learning. And so I would say figure out how you're going to find support and that someone that has your back. Because sometimes spouses are supportive, sometimes they're not. They see it as, oh, you're taking time away from me. It depends, none of this is easy.
Right. And it's a marathon. So, I mean, it sounds like from the first onset of things that you were noticing with your mom until now, you've well gone past 5 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. So it was right at like March of 2020. It was like my birthday. I was there for her appointment. And then the world shut down. And yeah, so we just hit the 5-year mark. And I'm caregiving every dadgum day with something. With like something comes in the mail from Medicare and like my heart stops. I'm like, oh God, like I can't take it anymore. Because I had to do all of her Medicare stuff, but then I didn't know what she did, and now we're paying the drug penalty. And like, I mean, I didn't want to learn about Medicare, but I got burned by a couple brokers, and I was like, it just never ends. So,
well, it continually puts us in a position of needing to know more information about things than we want to know. Like, I don't want to know about those things.
I know. And I tried so hard to avoid the Medicare rabbit hole, but I was forced. And I know a lot more now, but I still don't know a lot. And I know enough to still be perpetually confused.
Right. Yeah. How did she do with the transition and adjustment to memory care?
Well, when the first one to Maryland, it was fine. And she had Nancy there and she had me there. And I mean, it was an adjustment and she was still, like I said, cognizant enough that she did a lot of crying. Like there was, I mean, she was mad, she was sad, she was upset. And then, oh my gosh, but she was still like, and we didn't have her stuff because we had to move her stuff. So she had this unfamiliar stuff in her room. And then we finally got all of her stuff in there, got everything moved, and it was a beautiful brand new building. Well, something happened and a pipe burst and flooded her whole room. So she had to move to the other wing for like a month, and that confused the shit out of her. And then, so she moved back. So I mean, it's just like, oh my God. So she got comfortable and we were always visiting and it was good. And then when we moved her to Tucson, it was an adjustment. So she can't picture things in her mind or bring people to mind, but she has a familiarization. So she had to get familiar with the new environment and the new caregivers and the new everything. And but I mean, it takes time.
Yeah.
And then she still will like, some days I'll come in there and like the lamp and everything will be like by the door because she's moving. She's ready to move.
So it's not something that needs to be corrected in a certain sense of the word.
No, we just let her do it. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, but it's very normal. And then, so you talk about music. So I was on a plane wherever I was going recently, and there was a documentary on yacht rock. I'd never heard the term yacht rock, but I love Michael McDonald and the Doobie Brothers and Steely Dan. So there's this whole genre called yacht rock, and evidently I'm like 5 years past when it became big, and so that's like my new thing, yacht rock, like
And what is the
YACHT, like a a ship, a yacht.
okay?
It's like a whole thing. It's a thing. Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's so
I have
fun.
all these. So I've been playing that nonstop, and I'm like, woohoo! Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
More dancing, more music, more dancing in our lives.
yes, yes. And I'm trying to, find more conferences. So if there's any, I mean, they're everywhere, but because there's a couple in Orlando that I was going to maybe go to, but I just don't have time. And you probably know Kitty Norton of Wine, Women, and Dementia. Do you know her?
I have connected with her, but we haven't like connected.
Yeah, she's right. So I held a screening of her movie Wine, Women, and Dementia in Tucson when I got here, and I didn't have a giant turnout just because I was too new and I didn't have my network built yet, but it was amazing. So
I need to circle back with her. There are so
it's
many
so
wonderful resources online, and I love that you wrote this guidebook for people so that we can have a map to anticipate what's coming and how we can be prepared, but then also to have some juicy stories, because I think that that is really what's connecting us, is knowing I'm not alone. Okay. It doesn't seem like they have it all together too.
not at all. I mean, we were like you made it perfect, stumbling into it. And then one of the yacht rock songs is Stumbling In. I forget who sings it, Stumbling In. I don't know if it's Kenny Loggins or Stumbling In, but yeah, that should be the theme song. That's gonna be
That
my
is amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, any other final words of wisdom for people
Well,
who
the
are
one I
listening?
always start with is to people, as I tell people, get your powers of attorney for medical and financial for yourselves, your parents, and your kids over 18. Like that's like a good starting place, and have an attorney do it. Don't do it on LegalZoom and check some random boxes, but the state specific stuff is so different and the rules are different. But I mean, a power of attorney will transfer, but just have it done right.
Mm.
And then you can go to your will and your trust and all that stuff. But like those are having a medical power of attorney, a financial power of attorney, and then like a HIPAA release form maybe. But that kind of gets you in the door when you start going. Because if you don't have that and you're trying to get information or trying to help, and even some banks won't recognize the powers of attorney. They have their own forms. I mean, again, there's a whole rabbit hole with the CDs and the Social Security and financial assets, and it's a huge. But and all the books I read and review are on my Instagram Dementia Book Review, because I've read a lot on
Yep.
everything.
That's that's amazing. What is your handle on Instagram?
Dementia Book Review. Yeah,
Perfect.
I've literally reviewed like 50 books on everything related to dementia and financial and grief and like everything.
That's fantastic. Okay.
I do like Instagram. So now I'm following you. So
Yay, that's so great. I'll make sure that I'm following you back, because sometimes I like things are just happening on Instagram and I don't know
no,
what's
it's a
happening.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot to manage. And I love LinkedIn, which you're on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn too. So
Great. All right. Well, people have a way to get a hold of you. I'll put a link in the show notes so people can find you on Instagram and LinkedIn, and then also is your book on Amazon?
yeah. So if you go to my website, it's njsmithbooks.com.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful for your time.
Yeah, no, and I loved the episodes you had, the one about the bowel movement doctor. She was so good. And yeah, no, I
Yeah.
loved it.
Constipation is real. I would like to ask you one final question is
Yeah.
what do you wish you would have known then that you know now? If there is even just one thing, I don't know. What do you wish you would have known going into this?
Um, just pay attention to your parents. Pay attention to your parents. I mean, I know some people don't have good relationships and that's all, but I mean, I was in touch with my parents, but I didn't know that, like anybody in your life in their mid 70s, pay attention to
Mhm.
what they're doing and how they're acting. It's not a given. And I wish I knew, well, age is the biggest risk factor for dementia. So as you get older, the chances of you getting dementia get higher, and it's not a given, it's not a guarantee, but yeah, we didn't talk about all the dementia stuff, but I would just say pay attention to your parents or even your spouses as you get like for the subtle signs, because all of the research is saying the earlier you start with any kind of like meds or anything is helpful, but lifestyle is key, right? Lifestyle changes are key. So I mean, we already all know what we're supposed to do to be healthy, but we don't do it. We'd rather just eat chocolate and drink beer like I do. But I do exercise. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm appreciative of you.
Yeah, it's so fun to meet you. So I'm sure we'll be in touch again.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.